When 80-year-old Ruth sat in her favorite armchair one quiet Sunday afternoon, her daughter Emily came by for coffee. The two talked about the usual things: how the garden was doing, how Emily's kids were growing up too fast, and how Ruth's knees were a little stiff but still working. It was comfortable, familiar, safe. But as they talked, Ruth kept glancing at the small box sitting on the corner of the table, the one she'd been meaning to open for months. Inside were letters, financial papers, and a note she had written to Emily, but never had the courage to read aloud. It wasn't about money or medical decisions, it was about love, legacy, and what truly mattered if she were no longer here. She had rehearsed it 100 times in her head. She wanted to say, "I'm proud of you, I trust you, and when the time comes, I want you to remember that my greatest wish is for you to live freely and not feel guilty about me." But every time she tried to bring it up, her throat tightened. "It'll just make her sad," she'd tell herself. "We'll talk about it another day." But those other days kept slipping by. Many seniors carry this same hesitation, the unspoken desire to have that one important conversation with their children. It's not about wills or property or end-of-life paperwork, though those are important too. It's about emotional closure, honesty, and reassurance. The kind of talk that says, "I love you enough to make sure you're at peace when I'm gone." Yet for many, the words never come. Some fear burdening their children with difficult emotions, others assume their kids already know how they feel. But silence can leave behind questions that echo for years. Ruth often told her friends, "My daughter and I are close, she knows I love her." But deep down, she knew love wasn't the issue. Clarity was. There were things she wanted to explain, fears she wanted to ease, and blessings she wanted to give, not after she was gone, but while she could still hold Emily's hand and look her in the eye. That's the struggle so many seniors face, the tug between wanting to protect their family from discomfort and wanting to prepare them with truth and love. These conversations often bring tears, yes, but they also bring tremendous peace. Research from the University of Minnesota found that families who talk openly about aging, health, and emotional matters experience stronger relationships and far less regret after loss. In other words, it's not the conversation that hurts, it's the absence of it. The turning point for Ruth came unexpectedly. One morning, Emily stopped by unannounced after receiving news that a friend's mother had passed away suddenly. Emily hugged her mother tightly and whispered, "I just realized we've never really talked about, well, things." Ruth felt her chest tighten. The exact conversation she had been avoiding had arrived on its own. But instead of dodging it, she took a deep breath and said, "I've been waiting for the right time. Maybe that time is now." That afternoon they sat for hours, laughing, crying, remembering and speaking about the future with honesty and grace. Ruth shared her wishes, but more importantly, she shared her love. Emily said later, "That was the hardest talk we ever had, and the most beautiful. It was like Mom gave me a map for how to keep living after she's gone." In today's video, we'll talk about the one conversation every senior should have with their children, why it matters, what makes it difficult, and how to approach it in a way that heals, not hurts. Because sometimes the most important legacy you leave isn't what you hand down, it's what you say out loud while you still can. If this topic already touches your heart, please tap the like button, subscribe to Senior Ways, and share this video with a friend or family member who might need the courage to start this very conversation. Lesson 1. Tell them what you're grateful for, not just what you've done. When 77-year-old Robert finally sat down with his son, he thought he'd talk about finances or family plans, but instead he started with something unexpected. "You know," he said softly, "I've never really thanked you." His son looked surprised. Robert smiled and continued, "You've been patient with me in ways I never was with my own father. You call me every week even when I'm grumpy. You show up. That means more than you'll ever know." That one moment changed everything between them. "It was the first time my dad spoke to me, not as a parent, but as a person," his son later said. Gratitude is often the missing piece in parent-child relationships as the years go on. Seniors sometimes assume their children already know how much they're appreciated, but unspoken gratitude can easily get lost under years of routine arguments or assumptions. When spoken aloud, though, gratitude becomes healing. It softens old misunderstandings, replaces guilt with love, and strengthens the emotional bridge between generations. Psychologists have found that expressing appreciation triggers oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which literally helps people feel closer. And for older adults, saying thank you can be one of the most freeing experiences of all. It shifts the focus from what's been lost to what's been given. Robert now keeps a simple ritual. Every Sunday when his son calls, he ends the conversation with one sentence of thanks, sometimes for a big thing, sometimes for something small. "You're the reason I still laugh every day," he once said. His son told him later, "That one line stays with me all week." The truth is, children carry their parents' gratitude long after they're gone. It becomes a voice of reassurance echoing through every chapter of their lives. Lesson 2, reassure them about what comes next. 81-year-old Margaret remembers the night her daughter Lisa sat at her bedside after a health scare. Lisa tried to stay calm, but her eyes betrayed her worry. "Mom," she whispered, "please don't ever leave me." Margaret squeezed her hand and replied gently, "Sweetheart, I will someday, but I need you to know you'll be okay when I do." It's a conversation that terrifies many seniors to have. Talking about death, illness, or even the future feels heavy, even taboo. But silence often leaves loved ones unprepared emotionally and practically. Reassurance is not about pretending everything will be easy. It's about removing the fear that life can't continue without you. Margaret later said, "I wanted her to know I trust her strength. I didn't want her to spend her life worrying about losing me. I wanted her to know she'd carry me in everything good she does." Research from the University of Rochester found that families who have open, compassionate conversations about aging and mortality experience significantly less emotional distress when loss eventually happens. Knowing a parent's wishes and hearing them spoken with love brings peace instead of panic. Margaret didn't discuss hospital details or funeral plans that night. Instead, she shared her faith in her daughter's resilience. "You're more like me than you realize," she told her. "You'll cry, you'll heal, and then you'll live, and that's exactly what I want." After that conversation, Lisa described feeling a strange calm. "It's not that I want to lose her," she said, "but I'm no longer afraid to think about it." Seniors who take the brave step to reassure their children about the future don't just prepare them for loss, they teach them how to live with love and courage. It's one of the greatest emotional gifts a parent can give. Lesson 3, ask for forgiveness, even when it's hard. When 83-year-old Gerald finally gathered the courage to have the talk with his two daughters, he thought he'd feel relief, but instead, he felt a lump in his throat. As they sat around the kitchen table, he said something that surprised even him. "I know I wasn't always the father you deserved." His oldest daughter froze for a moment, then whispered, "Dad, we were never waiting for you to be perfect, just honest." That moment became one of the most healing in their family's history. "All the old tension between us disappeared," his daughter later said. "It was like someone opened a window in a room that had been closed for years." Forgiveness is one of the most powerful yet most avoided parts of family conversations. Many seniors carry guilt from years or even decades earlier. Maybe it was being too strict, working too much, or saying things in frustration that still echo in memory. But what many don't realize is that asking for forgiveness isn't about reopening wounds, it's about closing them. Psychologists at Stanford University have found that acknowledging personal mistakes, even briefly, dramatically improves emotional connection between parents and adult children. It rebuilds trust and rewrites the relationship narrative from one of regret to one of renewal. Gerald said afterward, "I thought saying sorry would make me look weak. Instead, it made me feel lighter." The truth is, adult children rarely expect perfection. What they crave most is understanding, to know their parents see the full picture and value their feelings. When seniors show vulnerability, they teach by example that love doesn't need to be flawless to be real. Lesson 4, offer forgiveness too. 79-year-old Joyce had carried quiet hurt for years. Her son David had made choices. She didn't agree with a career path that took him far away, a divorce she didn't understand, and years of distance that left her feeling abandoned. When he finally called to visit, she felt both joy and resentment bubbling at once. "I wanted to be happy to see him," she said, but part of me wanted to make him feel guilty first. When David arrived, though, she saw the same boy she used to hold when he was afraid of thunderstorms, older now, with lines of his own. Something inside her softened. He hugged me, and I realized I didn't want to punish him. I wanted to love him. That night she told him, "You've made your mistakes, but I've made mine too. Let's stop keeping score." David began to cry. "Mom," he said, "that's all I've wanted to hear." Offering forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it transforms how it lives inside you. Studies from the Mayo Clinic show that people who forgive freely experience lower blood pressure, reduced anxiety, and even improved heart health. But beyond biology, forgiveness restores the emotional heartbeat of a family. Joyce said that after forgiving her son, she slept peacefully for the first time in years. "I didn't realize how much energy it took to hold on to old pain," she said. "Letting go felt like breathing again." The truth is, forgiveness flows both ways. The conversation every senior should have isn't just about asking for it, it's about giving it. Because love in later life isn't about keeping score, it's about keeping peace. Lesson 5. Tell them what you hope they carry forward. 80-year-old Nancy always told her grandchildren, family isn't about bloodlines, it's about lifelines. But when she grew older, she realized she'd never told her own children what she truly hoped they would carry on after she was gone. So one evening, as they all gathered for dinner, she said, "I don't want to leave you money or things. I want to leave you values." Her children looked at her surprised. "What do you mean?" Mom Nancy smiled. "I mean kindness. I mean integrity. I mean laughter even when life isn't funny. If you remember those things, then I'll still be here." That simple message stayed with them. Months later, her daughter called to say, "Mom, I caught myself saying to my son exactly what you used to tell us. You're still teaching us even now." Nancy said that was all she ever wanted to know. Her love and lessons would outlive her voice. This is the heart of the one conversation every senior should have, not just explaining the past or preparing for the future, but planting seeds that keep growing long after you're gone. Children, even adult ones, crave guidance that feels timeless, not tied to money or responsibility, but to character. Psychologists call this intergenerational purpose, the desire to leave behind meaning that shapes the next generation's identity. Studies show that parents who share clear personal values create stronger family resilience for decades to come. In other words, it's not the inheritance that lasts, it's the influence. Nancy said it best, "You can't take anything with you. But if you've taught your children how to love, how to forgive, and how to keep going, you've already given them everything." After Ruth and Emily's long talk that Sunday afternoon, something subtle but profound changed between them. They called more often, they laughed easier. The small misunderstandings that once felt heavy seemed to fade. It was like we finally started seeing each other as two women, not just mother and daughter, Emily said. For Ruth, it felt like peace, not the kind that comes from avoiding hard topics, but the kind that blooms when you face them together. She realized that conversation wasn't about preparing Emily for her death, it was about preparing her for life. It gave both of them a sense of calm that nothing else could. Weeks later, Ruth told a friend, "I always thought having that talk would break my heart, but it healed it instead." That's the hidden truth about this one conversation. It's not about finality, it's about freedom. The freedom to express what's been unsaid, to forgive what's been heavy, and to love without hesitation. Every senior who has this talk discovers that it doesn't end in tears, it ends in connection. And for families, that connection becomes the legacy itself. Final thoughts. So let's take a moment to remember what makes this one conversation so life-changing. It begins with gratitude, not just for what your children have done, but for who they've become. It includes reassurance, the words that tell them they'll be okay when you're no longer by their side. It opens space for forgiveness, both given and received, because love is always bigger than mistakes. And finally, it ends with legacy, the reminder that what you leave behind isn't measured in possessions, but in the principles and love that continue long after you're gone. The seniors who find the courage to speak these truths give their families the most precious gift, imaginable peace of heart. Because when words of love and understanding are shared openly, there are no regrets left behind, only gratitude. So if you're listening to this right now, maybe today is your moment. Pick up the phone, write a letter, sit down at the kitchen table, and say the words that matter most. Your children don't need a perfect speech. They just need your voice. And if this message spoke to your heart, please tap the like button, subscribe to Senior Ways, and share this video with someone you love. And in the comments, tell us, what's one thing you still want to tell your children or grandchildren? Because the truth is, love unspoken is love unfinished, and it's never too late to finish the story.